A couple of weeks ago, Jubilee hosted a discussion where 20 atheists would debate one Christian. In one of their recent episodes, they had Jordan Peterson as the representative for the Christian side. This was confusing because Jordan never claimed to be a Christian, even though he spends much of his time talking about the Bible and Christianity. In fact, his biblical series on YouTube are some of the most popular and viewed among all his videos. He was and still is an inspiration to many people out there, especially young men, who have been completely abandoned by society in favor of helping women. So, Jordan came to fill the vacuum left by society and began to reach out to men in order to give them hope. But up until recently, his appearance on Jubilee caused a stir as he was debating one kid named Danny, who is an atheist. Their discussion revolved around the question of worship and the idea that we all worship something or someone. This is the part I'm going to focus on mostly in this video. In this clip, Jordan is talking to a young man named Danny. He is somewhat typical of many people his age, overly confident and zealous, but not based on anything substantial. He barges into this debate with just quick wit, but he didn't present any substantial criticisms towards Peterson's arguments about whether atheists worship something or if Jordan worships Mary or not. As Peterson is explaining the concept of worship as he sees it, Danny just constantly misrepresents his argument and hangs on to straw man explanations. He attacks the caricature of the argument Jordan is making while completely ignoring the actual substance of it. Eventually, the debate devolves into insults as Danny continues to behave like a childish brat and calling Jordan as being, quote, being nothing. It's ironic that he said this since his behavior indicates he should be accusing himself of that, not Jordan Peterson. Then Jordan chooses to refuse to continue debating Danny, and this kid just goes back to his chair. Many people were divided into two main camps. The first camp was made up of people who thought Danny won and helped expose Jordan Peterson as a fraud who peddles Christianity without even being sure whether he is a Christian or not. Since Jordan is someone who has been known for avoiding clear questions such as, "Are you a Christian?" by answering very vaguely, many people felt vindicated when they saw Peterson frustrated at the kid's pushiness and aggressive style. They saw it as justified since they perceived Danny as someone who exposed Jordan for his evasiveness of this basic and fundamental question, which most people, regardless of educational background, would understand very clearly. I agree with the claim that Jordan was way too evasive and irritating when it came to the question, but I don't necessarily agree that Danny is the best candidate for quote-unquote exposing Peterson, whatever that means. The second camp are those who were looking for a more substantial disagreement and discussion about this topic, but were frustrated by Danny's arrogance and immaturity in mishandling this discussion. They perceived him as unserious and bratty, only looking for a gotcha moment instead of genuinely inquiring in order to find out a fundamental truth regarding a very deep and nuanced topic. Danny ignored all this and was only interested in his 15 minutes of fame, which he got, but at what cost? He may have won the battle, which I would argue he didn't, but maybe he thinks he did. But ultimately, he exposed himself as a narcissist and someone who is intellectually dishonest and a fraud, even more so than what he thinks Jordan is. So I think Peterson is wrong about Danny. He isn't just quite something, he is quite nothing. Jordan Peterson might have been frustrated and chose to cut the discussion with him, but it doesn't mean that he is a coward or intellectually weak. It's still frustrating that he can't just make up his mind and say which side he is on. But at the end of the day, you can't deny his contributions to Western thought. One can hardly say that about Danny, who no one knew before this video. The final thing I want to talk about is, are these debate formats that Jubilee and other YouTube channels host useful in any way? It depends. Though I'm not a big fan of debates, I do think that they can be one source of knowledge because it helps to present both sides of an argument to the listeners. This helps listeners to compare and contrast these opposing viewpoints and to ultimately come up with their own conclusions. The drawback is that debates oftentimes lack nuance because the focus is more on presentation than the actual substance of the topic and what is being said by the speakers. It requires quick thinking instead of a slower and more methodical reflection before giving an answer. So this format would be good for bite-sized information, but it is mostly useless for those who are trying to dig deep into a topic of interest. So then, what is a better format to learning more about complex topics through listening to videos? Generally, open discussions between two parties with a moderator present are far superior because they allow more time for both speakers to flesh out their thoughts and to personalize the conversation instead of focusing on just scoring points. Again, I know that in a debate format, this is also possible, but oftentimes it is not due to the nature of a debate. Ultimately, whatever format you prefer, you want to ideally be intellectually honest and genuinely seek the truth instead of just aiming for cheap gotcha moments that are good for an ego boost but are completely useless when it comes to growing in your understanding of something. So that's it for this video. If you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share to get notified about more videos like this one. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.